Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
April Fool's Day. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. Or, as you may be thinking, Unsolved Mysteries. I'm Ryan from coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
I'm Robert Stack.
Do you want to do your signature phrase?
How's it going?
There you go.
I can't do Robert Stack.
I'm Robert Stack. No, I can't.
He's
do
such a
he does, yeah.
brilliant,
he has a very
commanding,
imposing voice. Yeah, for sure.
And what's unique?
Yeah, unique for sure. Yeah, was he a smoker? Seems like he might have been with that voice. The way that it's sort of the timbre of his voice.
I think everybody in that period of time
probably
smoked.
He's probably sneaking off during our mysteries breaks.
No, man, it was the 80s. You didn't have to do that.
Didn't have to sneak off. You could just do it on film. Well, as you might have guessed, we pulled a little funny business because it's nearly April Fool's Day. When this episode is recorded, it's March 27th, but when it drops, it'll be March 29th, and that's close enough to April 1st. We're not going to get it right on the dot, but we thought we'd do a little April Fool's episode because I don't think we've ever done one before. Nothing like themed around April Fool's Day. Never really works out that way.
Well, why bother?
It's true. It's not really a big thing, but we've tried to do almost every other season. So,
but hey, if this journey of a podcast has taught me anything, horror movies like to scrape every nook and cranny they can find.
That's right. That's why I said, we haven't done April Fool's Day before, and so what's the perfect episode to do for April Fool's Day? But the film April Fool's Day. And now there are there's 3 different April Fool's Day films. One of them is not a horror movie. So the one that we're talking about today is the 1986 slasher film April Fool's Day. But there was a 2008 remake of this film called April Fool's Day as well. And both of those films got the apostrophe in April Fool's Day incorrect. So April Fool's Day, the day should be FOOLS apostrophe, because there's multiple fools on April Fool's Day. And the film versions of April Fool's Day have the apostrophe as though there's only one fool. And if you've seen
Who's the fool now?
Yeah, that's right. If you've seen either of the April Fool's Day films, you would know that there are more than one fool. So the apostrophe is incorrect. Just to point that out. But anyway,
that's like the highest level. And I do appreciate grammar Nazism because I'm one to correct such things too. But that's like the pinnacle right there. Like all you need to do now is like make comments on like colon usage.
That's right.
And then you're there. Like you're not just correcting spelling. You're like, no, the apostrophe needs to be here.
That's right.
They
got it in the wrong spot. There's also a film called All Hallows Eve, and the apostrophe is in the wrong spot in that film too. So it's interesting to point out those errors and how it got through so many people. It was like, no one ever remarked like, I think the apostrophe's wrong in that.
I just don't think they cared enough.
That's probably correct. So April Fool's Day from 1986 is sort of. I don't want to get into any of the particular details about the film, because there's certain things that we won't espouse on in the beginning of this portion, and we'll talk about it later on as we get into the film. But April Fool's Day is one of those movies that came out of the slasher craze in the 80s, and literally one of the later films in the slasher franchise that was still focusing on special days of the year. So, as you stated, there is a horror movie for almost every single occasion. And at this point in time, in 1986, they were running out of occasions. So you had Friday the 13th, which we did episodes on Friday the 13th. We did pretty much 1 through 3, and we've done... Is that it? Did we only do 1 through 3? Yeah, we did 1 through 3 in the remake. But in all of those films...
And what I was saying, 1 through 3 was for J Movie Talks.
That's right, for
podcast.
the J Movie Talk podcast. That's right.
Check it out.
Very nice plug again. Even years later, Jay's probably got to appreciate that. He's probably listening. He's like, I appreciate that. And like, somehow they keep managing to get the plug in there.
Because it's not for our... It's not. You're not going to find it in our library. So
No, I know. It's
someone's going to be like, Friday 1 through 3, they did a 3.5 hour marathon review of 3 films.
That's right. I just keep getting impressed that like we managed to slip a plug in there every now and then for this episode we did like one time way back when.
Well, Jay, it's been a while.
That's right. I talked to him quite a bit on Twitter.
Yeah. Hit us up.
We're ready to do another one. We'll do 4 through 6. No, actually, those episodes where you do 3 films are pretty difficult.
Yeah, no, because for those...
you have to do a lot of prep.
I would say for those ones, we didn't watch them together. We watched them on our own.
It's just so much prep work. But Friday 13th, if you go back to those, Friday 13th is not like even a day of the year.
Well, it wasn't even a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't a thing. But they made it into a thing and made it its own holiday.
Which, good for them. Good for them.
To make their own holiday?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
It's not fucking Leprechaun.
That's right.
It's not New Year's Evil. Yeah, it's not My Bloody Valentine.
They made their own thing. It's not Halloween.
It's not Halloween. It's not Warm Side of the Door. I mean, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
You know what else they had too? Happy Birthday to Me is another one where they took an occasion. This time it's not a holiday, obviously, but it's still an occasion. And they made it into another horror film.
Happy Death Day.
Happy Death Day. Yep.
It's, subverts the birth,
Absolutely. Pretty much every single occasion had been done.
Pass over your dead body.
They should have done one for Passover. They left out a lot of...
maybe there is like an 80s Israeli slasher film.
True.
Like,
Yeah. Well...
Hanukkah your dead body, chop your body.
No, the other one is better. Pass over your dead body.
Yeah, I know.
That's a pretty good one.
Should have stopped at that.
Yeah,
I got overzealous, just like the horror film genre.
But, so... With these, like, by 1986, you're running out of things to do. You're like, scraping the bottom of the barrel, like, what's the next holiday that you can do? And so, April Fool's Day is something that's kind of surprising to me that wasn't tapped sooner, especially in the 80s craze of slasher films. Because it does allow you to do a lot of the same types of gags that you would find, and, excuse Martin, he's sick again.
It's the winter that keeps on giving.
That's right. But the April Fool's Day element allows the film to tap a lot of those like gag moments and fake outs that slasher movies have been doing since the beginning. Of having cats jump out of nowhere,
or that one dick friend who's like, look at this little joke,
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my eye.
Yeah. That's like it's the epitome of all of those things in one day. And so you would think that they would tap into that a little bit earlier, but no, it took till 1986 for someone to say, you know what, that's a good idea. We should set something on April Fool's Day. And this one was directed by Fred Walton, and Fred Walton, I'm not really
sounds
familiar
like
with.
a TV writer name for on Family Ties or something.
You know what? He did write a lot of TV movies.
Like this episode's written by Fred Walton.
Okay, so Fred Walton, name didn't really stick out, but he did direct the original When a Stranger Calls, which was a pretty popular film during the 1970s, late 1970s. And he also, another one that he did that was sort of would be another standout for him besides all the TV movies that he did was I Saw What You Did, which is another TV movie that, if I don't know if anybody out there has seen it, but Scream Factory recently released this on Blu-ray. It's a fairly good movie. In this one, it's actually an adaptation of the 1965 film done by William Castle, but it's about prank phone calls, basically. And so, again, it has sort of that similar idea of prank phone calling and gags and stuff like that.
It going awry.
Yeah. So Fred Walton directed April Fool's Day, and April Fool's Day is one of those films that kind of stands out because it does subvert some of the essential elements of a slasher film. And like I said, I don't want to get into that too much. So Martin, just keeping that in mind, I don't want to get into the spoiler parts of it until we really get into the film proper. But in this movie, you do have sort of a parody element to the film that plays up some of the humor aspects of slasher movies. And by this time in 1986, it's kind of interesting. Though the slasher film craze was still at a pretty high point, and like I said, we're coming to the tail end of it by 1986, the franchise had already been parodied quite a bit. We had
by its own films.
By its own films, but then there had also been some scary movie-esque parodies already. Wacko is one of them. Probably one of the best of the parody films for slashers. Very much like Airplane, in that it played up like very Mel Brooksian humor and puns and gags and stuff like that. Very weird gags sometimes. Like one guy when he gets horny, he makes a lawnmower noise.
That would be great. How come the Zucker brothers didn't do a horror film spoof?
Who?
The people who did Airplane, the Zucker brothers.
Oh, yeah. Do a spoof like that? Yeah. But there's a couple that are like that in their humor. Wacko's one of them, which we just reviewed on Cultsploitation not that long ago. Student Bodies is another one, which is a pretty shot-for-shot parody of slasher films set in schools. And then there was also Saturday the 14th, which came pretty close after Friday the 13th and parodied those types of films again. So it's interesting that in its heyday, like Scary Movie, the film franchise had already parodied itself quite a bit, and it still was taking off in popularity with multiple films coming out and basically redoing things that had already been done before. So by 1986, with April Fool's Day, they were definitely looking to circumvent the regular slasher formula just a little bit here, and because a lot of films had tried to do this and either had not been that successful. Like I said, we're coming to the tail end here, so that whole slasher craze is sort of running out of steam at this point. So they wanted to do something a little bit different.
It would take until a very wise man who is well versed in the genre, in Wes Craven, to add those nice fourth wall elements and meta.
Yeah, we're
not quite there yet.
That is true. None of these films, and the ones that I mentioned, Student Bodies, Wacko, Saturday the 14th, they don't really have that meta element where the characters recognize that they're in, they recognize that they're in sort of a slasher film and know the rules to it. It's not really the case in those movies or even April Fool's Day. In April Fool's Day, I wouldn't call a parody in the same aspect as Wacko or Saturday the 14th or Student Bodies, because for the most part, this film plays out like a pretty straightforward slasher film. And you don't really know that you're in more of a parody element until you get later into the film.
Little off topic. Do you think Wes Craven would have went meta with his films if Freddy already wasn't kind of the idea of Freddy being in a dream world and dealing with dreams? Do you think the idea of New Nightmare would have ever came about if it was just if he didn't do Freddy, he did Friday the 13th, or if he did Halloween?
I think it would have been a harder aspect to pull off because Freddy, A New Nightmare, does really stand out because it does have those meta elements, and it makes sense for these characters to sort of be having their own sets of dreams about working on a film franchise like this. So I think it just lends itself because you have that. All of the films have in some ways a supernatural element, but Freddy's is probably the most exaggerated of them all. Jason, though he's supernatural and he can really come back from the dead and everything, that's really limited to what he can do supernaturally. Whereas Freddy, he has basically all control over dream worlds. So it does make sense that, he would want to go through the meta element there. And I think that just prompted him to go even further with Scream and seek out, do a straightforward slasher film, but then also have meta commentary within it. So
this is a thought.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking about it, like, as we were talking about, like, spoofing and stuff. It's just like, man, if he didn't come up with, Nightmare, like, if he did something different, probably never would have gotten there.
That's true.
Because, new Nightmare can only basically be made because of...
And, like, Halloween would never have gotten there either until Scream. Because, we see Halloween Resurrection, which is the one...
Which is
that does
Scream.
Basically Scream. And that has the same elements of Scream. But it would never have come to fruition if Scream hadn't done it first. So, pretty interesting. I just think that Freddy lends himself more to that style. But, little off topic.
And it might be bias on my part, but because I grew up with it more so. As the more and more we do all these slasher films from the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s, love my 90s slashers.
Mm-hmm. Those are still your favorites.
Yeah,
huh? I do love my 80s slashers. And the 80s slashers have a different sort of appeal to them because they do tend to be a little bit even cheesier than some of the 90s slasher films. And they're also sort of a nice nostalgic look back at a period that I never lived in. So, you kind of have that, you kind of live it vicariously by watching 80s films.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But in the 90s one, everyone that's in there. That's true. In the 80s, it's like, who the hell are these schmucks? Yeah. Unless it's like their first role, like Kevin Bacon's first role on Friday the 13th. 90s when you're watching, it's One Tree Hill that's going to get whacked off today. And this true. One, it's all of Dawson's Creek.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah, it's fun. 90s are fun. 80s have their own appeal, and I think there's definitely an appeal about April Fool's Day that we'll probably talk about when we get into the film itself.
Big missed opportunity on having John Saxon.
Yeah, any 80s movie that doesn't have John Saxon missed out.
Maybe it's because he's like, am I trying out for a role of a police officer? No, you're constable.
Thanks.
Not doing that shit.
Yeah.
I'm a police officer.
He's a detective. All right, let's take a break real quick. We'll do our beer talk because we do have something new on the show, and then we'll get back into April Fool's Day. So, I'll let you take it away. What did you bring for us today?
Well, because my bracket's busted. Happy March Madness, everyone. My bracket's busted. Can't care anymore about basketball. Tomorrow, it's America's second most important holiday. Right after the 4th of July, we have opening day for baseball. It's baseball season, everybody.
This would be Thursday the 28th.
Those two opening day games out in Japan between the A's and Mariners.
They don't count. Opening day baseball, Thursday, March 28th.
In the United States.
That's right.
Yankees play the Orioles at 1 o'clock at Yankee Stadium. I can't wait to hear the voice of Michael Kay. It's so soothing and so natural. So to celebrate such a great momentous day, I brought 2 different beers from local brewery and also baseball enthusiast, Cooperstown Brewing in Cooperstown, New York.
Yep.
If you haven't heard me say it before, it's the nicest town in all of America.
That's true. It's
a tourist trap if there ever was one, but the nicest town in all of America. Stuck in 1848. It's great. So today I brought, and actually, for being people who live up in upstate New York and near Cooperstown, only a piss take away from Cooperstown, I actually have not had that many Cooperstown beers.
Nope.
From the brewer, Cooperstown. So today, I brought their Backyard India Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
And I also brought something that came out especially for last year that I wanted to try, but wanted to wait till the right moment. And it's a golden ale that they made to celebrate the New York Yankees 1998 championship. So it's the 20th anniversary ale that they came out with last year to celebrate that momentous year and season the Yankees had. So, which one do you want to start off with?
We can talk about the Backyard Pale Ale, or the IPA first.
What did you think?
I think the Backyard IPA is really good. It's an English-style IPA, so it focuses on both hops and malts. And it does have a pretty high bitterness to it, but at the same time, it's sort of back-ended by the malty nature of this beer. And I think that works really well. if you've heard me talk about on the show before, I like IPAs, but English IPAs tend to be my jam. I really like those, especially because
a dime a dozen.
That's right, because they're not very common. No one really makes an English IPA. There's very few, and it actually tends to be areas like Cooperstown that make English IPAs. The other one that I can think of is there's one called like Middle English, I think, something like that. That makes what is it? I think it's like Middle English or something, and it's a local
in Syracuse.
Yes, a Syracuse brewery, and they also make an English IPA, which is very good.
I think it's because their whole shtick is like the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing that shit in college, like being out in Oswego, out in Central New York, seeing that stuff constantly on tap, and being like, "What the hell is that?" Never got it, but it does ring a bell.
It's Middle Ages anyway.
Yeah,
I was wrong. Middle Ages, they're in Pale Ale, which is really good because that's an English style IPA. For some reason, most people aren't making them. They're making American IPAs, and the way to distinguish them is that does it have a really high hoppy count to it, IBU count, but it also has a lot of malt in it? Then that's an English IPA. That's the best way that I can describe it. And it's really my thing because I like malts. I like malty beers like Oktoberfest and Marzen styles and Fest beers. And then I also like IPAs. Jam them together and you get sort of an ESB or an English IPA.
Yeah, I agree. To be honest with you, I gave it a lower rating on tap than I probably would have at first try because I wasn't expecting it. I didn't read the can to see what, it does have a nice description on what the hell it is. But I didn't read it. It kind of popped it open. I was like, this is not what I was expecting for an IPA. The fact that it's bitter, but it's not overly bitter, and it's very malty.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting that at all. I expected it to be like a typical West Coast style IPA with very florally and hoppy, which would make sense. Baseball, backyard, thinking hops, Very malty. I do appreciate, now that I've had a 1.5, I appreciate the flavor profile of it. I do. You're right. I'm like you. I also like English style IPAs. They're probably not my favorite style of IPA, but I do like them. And I do wish it was a more prevalent style because it has something to offer. It's got that nice hoppiness that you're looking for in an IPA, but it's also got a very malt forward taste profile to it to give it a nice balance that, is lacking in a lot of West Coast style IPAs that are very just hop, crisp floral, pine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I really enjoy it. It's not what I was expecting. It's a style I like. I wouldn't probably go for it that often, but then again, for the past 4 years, I haven't been in the most IPA mood to begin with, so even though I do enjoy them, I just, when I look at all of them, I'm kind of do I want that, but if, for an English style IPA, yeah, no, I really, I do, sounds like I'm bad talking, but I do like it, and, to be honest with you, I would this would be a nice fall IPA.
Yeah.
Something when it's getting cool, the leaves are turning.
Yep.
Postseason baseball starting to roll around. Break out this.
I agree.
It's nice fall IPA.
It is, yeah. The second one that we had was the World Champs 20th Anniversary Golden Ale. And this Golden Ale is pretty much well summed up by the back of the can as well. It's a golden ale, but it has some fruitiness to it that stands out on the palate and then kind of fades away. So it's not extremely fruity. You're not getting a huge blast of juiciness or anything like that. It's a very brief and fleeting fruitiness on the palate really quick. And it doesn't linger after you've swallowed and it's off the palate. And I think that's really the best way to describe this. I don't even know that I could say exactly what type of fruit is in this beer.
No, I tried pinpointing it. And it's it's kind of citrusy, but it's kind of pineapple-y, and it's kind of grapey. Yeah. I honestly, you're right. It's I almost wish they said kind of so you could have oh, that's what it is, because it's it's part kind of like citrusy. I don't know, like kind of like honeydew and just like these really like weird like mild fruits. You know?
It's super mild because it's interesting how you drink it, you get that very brief fruity flavor, and then it fades away and it's out, and it's almost so fleeting that you just can't pinpoint exactly what it is that's in it. The other thing that really follows it up is the hop, because there's quite a bit of hops in this still.
Even at like 4.4%.
Yeah, it's a fairly hoppy beer. It's a hopped up golden ale, with that really very brief, fleeting moment of fruit.
It'd be a nice beer to have when you're sitting in the stands at the ball game.
Yeah,
you know, 100. It's like that one game we went to and it was 110 out, and I ended up with like heat stroke afterwards. That's what I needed, you know, when Freddie Garcia and God, I can't remember who that pitcher was for the Mariners. I don't know if it was it was a Japanese pitcher, but I don't think it was Hisashi Iwakuma. Thank you.
I can't remember either, but I just know that they were trading, going back and forth as slow as possible.
Well, because I was thinking and just so you know, folks, for that game, it took 2.5 hours to get through 4 innings. On like the hottest day in the year in New York City in the middle of July, and we were sitting dead center. It was awful. Yeah, he's the only Japanese pitcher I can think of that pitched for the Mariners at the time, but I don't know if it was him or not. They might have had another one. But I just remember like 2 outs, 2-2 count. Man on first. Throws it over to first. Gets the ball back. Looks in. Throws it back over. Kept doing it, you know, over and over again. Ichiro's out in the sun dying.
Yeah. It was definitely a brutal game to watch. So yeah, this would have been a good one for that. It would have been refreshing.
Yeah.
Just a hint of fruit to get you through, and quench the palate a little bit. So yeah, it's a pretty good brew. I don't know that I'd choose this all the time, a golden ale, but
that was pretty reasonably priced for that 4-pack.
Yeah.
Only $8.99.
Yeah.
So I expect, you know, I was saying to you, I'm sure they'll probably come out with like a 10th anniversary ale for the Yankees, because it'll be 10 years this year since the 2009 World Series. So we'll probably do something for that.
Special beer for that one. Yeah. All around good picks. Cooperstown Brewing Company, local to us, fairly local to us. If you haven't been there, check out the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Fun time.
Please do.
Yeah. So, and then go to the brewery after.
I try to go there once a year.
Yeah.
I just love it.
Yeah.
Got to get me a Mike Messina jersey this year.
Also, a very nice town altogether. Very, very, they have like plantation style houses down there. They've got,
the nice mid 19th century architecture.
Yeah.
That our hometown of Gloversville has, but it doesn't look like it's been bombed out.
Beautiful Main Street that you can walk down. So get yourself a Louisville Slugger.
Well, like I said, as nice as of a place it is, it's a tourist trap.
It is, for sure.
Be prepared, you know, to be paying $10 for a coffee.
All right, let's get into April Fool's Day. Let's do this. We had a hell of a time, by the way, finding April Fool's Day. The best you can do is probably find it on Amazon. You can rent it from them for $3.99.
Jeff Bezos himself had to go digging around the archives to find the print of the film and then have it restored into HD to put onto his service.
That's right. He wanted it. He said so himself.
Yeah, because he wants the money. He's like, I want that $3.99.
But
he's got lawyer bills to pay.
That's right. But that just shows you the lack of availability. Shows you that April Fool's Day is not a super popular film in the slasher genre. Even so, it is one of the more standout versions of a slasher film, and I think that shows once you get into the film a little bit more. Generally towards the back half, even the last quarter of the film, because the film tends to be a little bit generic throughout the beginning of the movie, and that genericness might be a little bit of a turnoff to people watching it for the first time and not really knowing what to expect about the film. So, you know, the opening part of it is a little too cliche. It's almost like that Cabin in the Woods style cliche, but at least in the Cabin in the Woods, you know what you're getting. You're getting a cliche on purpose, and it immediately circumvents itself.
Stop. Eli Roth is not that smart.
It's not Eli Roth.
Whatever.
It's not an Eli Roth film. Get out of here.
Who did Cabin in the Woods again?
Joss Whedon.
Is it Joss Whedon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So,
why do I think it's Eli Roth?
I don't know. You're thinking Cabin Fever. You're thinking Cabin Fever. Not Cabin in the Woods.
I've seen both. It's been a long time, but you know what? You're right. Why? You want to know why this movie feels like it's cliched? Rips off Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Goes to Manhattan.
Sure. Early on, they're getting into that.
They're going on a ferry. Rips it off.
Yeah, and then you have all those other. I mean, basically, these are all tropes of slasher films, but you have going to a place alone in the woods. So you also have, you know, it's the Friday the 13th aspect to it. A lot of this does feel like right at home in a Friday the 13th film. The house itself, because we're going to this posh, nice little
New England mansion.
Yeah, New England house. That's their last name is literally St. John, as in like the St. John's Island and all that stuff.
All I could think about, you know what, the house is like a lot like something that I think you'd see like a Japanese horror game. Like, oh, it's this random mansion.
Right, just like sort of out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But it does remind me of like all of the cabins in Friday the 13th.
It's just for rich New Englanders.
Exactly.
That don't say slicker. Why didn't they say slicker?
That I can't answer.
Keeping a slicker
that
count.
I can't answer.
I was keeping a slicker count like his urban legend. Like, oh, get your slickers ready. But they call their cop, their local policeman, not the sheriff, not the cop. No, he's the constable.
Yep.
Is that a thing in New England? You're the one that went to school up in New England. Tell me.
Not that Not that I know of. I've never heard anybody called constable before. Perhaps Maine?
I don't know why, but it's like little like word things that kind of annoy. Regional word things. That annoy me. I heard like someone say like pop.
Right. Yeah. That's just a different region.
Or like if someone doesn't say sneakers,
you're just
like oh, tennis shoes.
You're just not used to that, so that's why it kind of.
No, I know, but it's just like it's not that I'm not used to it. It's just more like it just kind of annoys me. Like.
Yeah. Different regions, different words.
No, I know, but like I said, that's my own personal tick of regionalism, sectionalism.
But anyway, so you're right. The whole element of going to this house in the woods on a ferry, all very cliched. We do have to mention though, Friday the 13th Part 8 hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
so I can't really steal from it.
That was my joke. I'm like, ripped off Part 8, and you're like, it hasn't happened yet. I'm like, I know it hasn't, but still. Yeah. Maybe they saw then, like, oh yeah. Because that's the fun part about Jason Takes Manhattan. You're like, he's gonna be fucking around in Manhattan the entire... No, it's 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah, right.
The rest of it's
taking place on a ship.
Yeah, just dicking around on a ferry.
But, so, I think that main element of the film that's going to turn off viewers right away at the beginning of the movie is that things are pretty generic from the get-go. And that not only that, but there's a shit ton of characters in this film. There's so many characters in this film. It's hard to keep track of them.
Not only that, you know what this is? This looks like, it seems like Stephen King. It's like a very bad, like Stephen King got drunk one night on a bottle of Beefeater, and he's like, this is what he shat out as a short story of his like little New England towns of like.
That's true.
Just like Molly O'Shea Hohe Torre is coming in, and she's stuff happens and mischief.
Yeah,
and then he wakes up and he's like, this is shit.
I do think that one of the elements, and I think it's mostly intentional, right? That things are a little bit generic in that all of the characters are sort of your stereotypical people. There's mostly asshole dudes on this trip, and then there's the stereotypical sheltered woman, And then
they're all blonde.
Yeah, they're pretty much all blonde.
They're all blonde with that 80s Farrah Fawcett look, like took from the 70s, but then, gussied it up a little bit. And then everyone's got the most ridiculous names in the world, like, Chaz, Van Slyski,
there's Arch,
and
Kit,
Skip,
Muffy and
Buffy.
And then Harv, who becomes Hal. Yeah, everybody, and then that's not even counting their last names. Their last names, I didn't even catch most of their last names, but they're very ridiculous. They're like Kleisterman and stuff like that. That's all very and they all sound very made up. I forget what the one girl's name is Youngblood. So it's just, obviously tongue-in-cheek Youngblood.
Yeah.
But
they all come from like a background of smelling each other's own farts.
I think that's part of the point, though, is that you see all these rich hoity-toities, and you're like, I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of them.
These New England.
Get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the fun part about April Fool's Day.
Where's Lori Loughlin's daughter?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Who got into USC.
Why are you bribing a state school? What a fucking idiot.
It's the NYU.
That'd be like your parents bribing God, my son's really got into get into SUNY Albany.
Yeah.
With that, it's you applied? Well, you got in, We don't have room on campus, but you got in, Put you in a lottery to see if you can get a dorm or something.
One thing that I think works pretty well at the beginning of this film, though, is that you do have that April Fool's setting, and it is almost like a reverse Home Alone, and that Muffy has set up a whole bunch of these traps at the house that are supposed to be April Fool's jokes on the rest of the guests that are coming to stay at her house.
So you think John Hughes wrote this?
Yeah, basically. It is, though. It does play out in many ways like that, where you just have these there's a montage of random things that happen to each person in the house that they've been targeted.
See, this film is unrealistic. Who goes through that much trouble for April Fool's jokes?
Well, that is true.
Never in my life have I been subject or seen people be subjected to very elaborate April Fool's Day pranks.
Well, right, and then these ones seem like they've been planning them for quite a while. Like the one that happens on the boat is an April Fool's joke that they've been playing with this
Buck.
Yeah, like this.
I thought you were talking about Buck.
No, they've been playing with a switchblade, and they've been throwing it around back and forth, and then all of a sudden, one of them throws it at the other one because they get mad at each other, and he falls off the boat like he got stabbed.
He's
in
got
the
blood,
gut. And that's a very elaborate prank, and somebody obviously had planned that very far in advance in order to get everybody with this April Fool's joke. And I agree. Who goes to that elaborate length to...
It's not that funny of a joke.
No, it's really not that funny of a joke.
No, that's not the fact that he got stabbed, but you at the end, it's like... Really,
That was the joke. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's more of a...
Apparently the 80s are just this wild and crazy time,
Then you get the other things, though, that happen in the house, just like the doorknob falls off.
The water's shooting at you, and this light turns off that light, and that light turns off that light, and it's like a fucking Mass Effect puzzle where you gotta,
which one do you do to...
or Fallout, I gotta hit this switch to turn that switch off, and then hit that switch to turn that, and if I do it in the right order, they'll all turn off, and I can move on to the,
Yeah. I do think it adds a fun atmosphere to this movie, though, because how often do you have slasher films that are actually sort of fun? Sometimes they do have those pranks, sometimes they have elaborate kill setups, but April Fool's Day kind of plays with the audience throughout the entire film by asking them to laugh at these characters and find the humor in this movie before all hell breaks loose.
Well, I have to laugh at them, because when they're like, well, look at this place is awesome, and what a mansion, it's so cool, and then the one guy's like, hey, check this out, it's a dining room.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that,
look
at that fucking table, and,
China.
look at the china on that, Oh, they got salad and soup spoons. You know.
I can appreciate the water gag though, the faucet gag, because that's the only time that we actually see female nudity, which is sort of very. I mean, at this point, in 1986,
I've been hanging out with those Canadians too much. Sort of.
No, but in 1986, that's not very common that you have a slasher film that doesn't have a bunch of female nudity in it at this point.
Well, you know, that's the great thing when that chick, the one day, like, opens her window and she's stretching and her
girl.
Yeah, they're saying her shirt is unbuttoned, but literally perfectly, like, covering her tits up. Like the
tape nipple tape. Yeah, they definitely had that.
And it's like, that is not real. Like, oh, I'm gonna stretch, and it's just like perfectly.
I also like how she burst out the window. And you know, some guy saw her and then she got offended. It was like, you burst out the window in a like skimpy shirt. You knew that there could be other people outside. You know, that's if you're gonna get.
I wish I lived in a place where I loved life enough to, like, when I wake up in the morning, just fucking storm,
sound of music.
Like storm through the balcony and be like, oh, what a great day to be alive. Yeah, that's...
Well, you're not rich like they are. Sorry.
Yeah, it's... You know what? It's probably been since I was like 10 years old and didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? That might be tomorrow, because tomorrow's...
Are you a beautiful blonde woman that's also rich?
No, but Masahiro Tanaka's starting for the Yankees.
Well, there you go.
I think he's going to do well.
Well, yeah, so we had talked about this, but this film has a fucking lot of characters that are hard to keep track of. And I think that's one of the worst elements of this, because who
the hell's the main character? You don't really know who the main character is until, like, the end.
True, that's part of it. But I also found that some of the guys looked very similar, and so you're kind of wondering, like, which one is which? Who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, they all got and their personalities, like, this one's like a joke, and this one's like a business person. They're all, like, so similar.
Yeah,
like,
very similar,
you know.
People. Yeah, they all want to sleep with the women. They all want to be rich people. They all want...
The only one that didn't look normal was, like, Chaz, because he was like, I'm trying to be Sid Vicious! Like,
Chaz reminds me of Brad Pitt from Fight Club, where he's got that, like, ridiculously, I just got electroshocked hair. But then you've got other guys, like...
Rick Springfield.
Yeah, which one's the guy that looks like...
Kevin Bacon?
Kevin Bacon, yeah.
It's like Rick, isn't it?
Rob, maybe?
Rob, yeah.
Oh, it's Rob. I think it's Rob. Yeah, Rob looks exactly like Kevin Bacon from Friday the 13th. As though that was, like, sort of typecast for it. And then you have...
one of the guys looks like Swayze.
I think you're talking about Harvey, right? The guy that's sort of like the Southern gentleman guy. Is that who you're thinking?
The hick.
Yeah.
That wears a nice dinner jacket.
Yeah, it's Harvey.
Yeah, he's like, kind of reminds me of like Swayze.
Yeah. And then I think the last one, I think we actually covered most of them that I thought that looked like everybody else, I guess. So three people. No, there's more guys. They just expire early. That's all. They just blend together, and I think that's an issue because
you know what though, the ferryman.
Yeah,
kind of like they should have just got George Carlin because he looks like he's trying to do his best George Carlin. Like,
well, and I think they're also trying to go for like that ominous dude, like Ralph from Friday the 13th, who's like, "Oh yeah, don't go to that island. There's a curse on that island." But
that archetype would be perfected a year later by, I'll go down that road.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I'm very excited to see what John Lithgow's going to do. Because if anybody can do that role, it's America's treasured icon, John Lithgow.
True.
And that is not sarcasm. John Lithgow, an icon.
For the women in April Fool's Day,
they're all the same.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Muffy's the only one that's diverse because she's a brunette. The rest of them are all just blonde, blonde bimbos. Well, they all wear like this, like crocheted, stitched, like outfits. They all have the same hairstyle of like feathered blonde hair.
Yeah.
They all talk about the same things.
Well, Nan in particular stands out because she's the one that looks like she's about 45 years old. and doesn't want to participate in literally anything.
She's like, I'm here to study.
Yeah, she's
wow, yeah.
All she wants to do is read Milton's Paradise Lost. Like, what a fun chick she is. Very fun.
Lost American treasure.
Very fun at parties. So she stands out.
So with that, you're the bookworm. You're the one that went for English lit.
Yeah.
Would that be up your alley? Like, oh wow,
Milton?
Yeah, like her being like,
no.
Why don't we reading Paradise Lost right now?
No, it's way too dry.
Would you be like, I'm on break, I'm drinking?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually had a professor that was obsessed with Paradise Lost. He did his whole doctorate on Paradise Lost. We talk about it in most of his lectures, and it was like, okay, we get it. You like Paradise Lost. It was like, the book was written like 400 years ago. Give it a rest. But she's a very annoying character, and I would not have any relation with her, I don't think. The one that does stand out for the female characters though is Kit, because she does end up becoming sort of the final girl of the movie. And if you recognized her, you probably should have. She's in Friday the 13th Part 2. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't catch it. Yeah, Amy Steele, who plays Kit, was also in Friday the 13th.
Say that
Part
name
2.
again?
Amy Steele.
You sure that's not a porn name?
Yeah. Amy Steele. Yep, she's in Friday the 13th Part 2.
We're pretty sure I've seen that in some 80s porn film.
Yep. Yeah, you didn't catch that one, though, did you?
Well, why the hell would I?
No, she looks familiar, but she at this point, it's 5 years after Friday the 13th Part 2, so understandable that you didn't catch it.
I'm not like you. I'm not up to... Like I said, that's why I like the 90s. It's like, oh, Sarah Michelle Gellar's in all these films. Why? It's like, why are you doing this? It's like, oh yeah, you were just in Buffy, and this is what you were doing.
Speaking of Sarah Michelle Gellar, the woman who plays Nikki, Deborah Goodrich, does remind me of Sarah Michelle Gellar a little bit.
If she was thrown in the 80s?
Yeah, and sort of like she actually sort of reminds me of Sarah Michelle Gellar in I Know What You Did Last Summer. She has that similar style.
Beauty queen aspect.
Yep, exactly. Sort of reminds me of like what they modeled. They modeled her for in I Know What You Did Last Summer. All right, so it's kind of hard to talk about this film. It's hard to talk about exactly what happens because there are two elements to this film. There's the initial element of very generic slasher film up until the end of the film, where it sort of opens up a little bit. So I guess let's focus on the first part of it. Since both of us have only watched this the one time tonight, I've actually never seen this before. So we have sort of the privilege of talking about this without ever having seen it before, so we didn't know the ending in advance. So let's talk about just what we do know before we get to the ending. We talked about generic. What do you think about the kills within this film?
Terrible.
And I'll leave it at that.
Terrible.
Sure.
It's terrible. You don't see at any point in this film the killer, how they're killed. You just see the after effects.
Yeah.
And it's all off screen. Outside of the one on the boat of the joke of throwing the switchblade and it hits the guy in the gut. He's like, ah! Outside of that, it's just all after effect and you don't get to see anything.
Yeah.
So it's very muted. Honestly, to be honest with you, how would you get this above a PG-13? It's almost it's almost comical, how bad, even when they're like, oh, here's the severed head. It's kind of like, yeah, that's really bullshit that like a mannequin head you found.
Yeah,
and it's so clear as day.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue is that when you're watching the movie,
none of the kills resonate with you.
Yeah, they're all.
There's not a single kill in this film that I'm like. That I can remember. Just watched this film an hour ago. Can't remember a single kill that And
the thing that's interesting too is that they're edited so
precise
so quickly and that you almost are wondering did they actually are they dead? Did they actually die? And that
that one's dead on the boat because he's great.
Right.
So within a day he turned pale gray. And my worst part about that scene is when they go in the shack to have sex and they notice the body, because it's like, don't even bother throwing that towel down. It's not going to do anything on that wood floor. Just, if you're going to do that, accept your fate and be with it.
The splinters.
You're not gonna get a split. Well, yeah, you could, but
yeah, in that cabin or whatever they're in.
I know, but still, but those towels those aren't even like good beach towels.
No, I know.
Not even good thick beach towels. They're like hand towels for God's sakes.
No, I agree. But yeah, none of the kills happen on screen at all. So you're sort of left with this weird scenario where all you see are the after effects, or you see the bodies, and in those one scene, there's a decapitation where you actually see the head fall off. But other than that, everything is very goreless. The most you'll see is what you can consider a severed penis, right? Because there's only one scenario where you actually see some blood, and that's around the underwear area, the genital area.
And it's so precise, like if you were to cut someone's dick off and create this perfect little ring around,
Yeah, I did. That was one thing that really stuck out to me, is that watching the film, and as a straight slasher film, the kills are very underwhelming, because in 1986, we had been seeing some crazy stuff. Tom Savini had been at work doing all of his Friday the 13th kills.
Day.
Yeah, we're getting tons and tons of gore at this point, and April Fool's Day really pares everything back.
Yeah, no, I was saying, a year before Day of the Dead.
Yeah,
with Tom Savini's like probably. If you ask me, that's probably Tom Savini's best work, Day of the Dead.
Yeah, and he was doing work on Friday the 13th and all this stuff. And we're getting all these gore effects. Jason is going further and further.
You're getting people slammed into trees and
with sleeping bags and shit. Yeah, and April Fool's Day really takes everything a step back. And it's even, in those beginning kills, it's a lot less violent and gory than what you even see in Friday the 13th Part 1. And even that was sort of muted, and a lot of things were off screen, and you only saw the after effects of it. So I think April Fool's Day, watching it for the first time, that element of seeing those kills is very disappointing, because it does seem so out of touch with the rest of where slasher films were at this time. So very interesting.
Takes the believability out of it, which makes that ending make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a part of what is so compelling about April Fool's Day, because once you do all of the kills and everything, lead up and all of the exposition, when you get to the end, the payoff is there, and it does start to make sense. And you're like, oh, okay, that's why they did it the way they did it. And so you kind of change your mind about it a little bit. You're like, okay, well, it was generic. It lacked gore, but the reason for it is because of the twist ending. And that does make sense to me. And I actually find that I enjoy that about April Fool's Day, because it didn't go... There are plenty of films like April Fool's Day that do generic kills and generic slasher movie to a T throughout the entire film. And when it ends, you're like, okay, that was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And April Fool's Day...
Evil.
Yeah, New Year's Evil. And April Fool's Day is just not that film. It actually does attempt to change the formula and do something a little bit different when it gets to the conclusion. Should we talk about the conclusion right now?
Why not?
Why not? Let's go.
So, this film ripped off Clue.
Yeah, but Clue wasn't out yet.
But it was a board game.
Oh, yeah, sure. And you actually mentioned Murder, She Wrote.
I know, I was going to say, this movie is literally Murder, She Wrote. It's like an episode of Murder, She Wrote. I apparently I'm an old fuddy-duddy if I, like...
No, I agree. I mean, it does seem in some ways like a Murder, She Wrote episode, or like a Columbo episode, or...
It's just, Miss...
10 Little Indians, the Agatha Christie story, which we won't say the other name for it, because it's a little offensive.
Isn't that what Murder, She Wrote's based off of?
Yeah, really. I mean, Murder, She Wrote is
based off Agatha Christie's story.
Agatha Christie's
but no, it's basically what it ends up being. It's like, surprise, it's all a ruse.
Yeah.
It's, we're doing I'm going to turn this, to get this mansion for my inheritance. I needed to make it be able to turn a profit. So I decided I was going to turn it into an inn that made it into a whodunit inn. And that's what this whole thing comes off of. Is this giant elaborate whodunit scheme that Muffy came up with to trick her friends to see if her idea would work. And it did, because they're all a bunch of fucking idiots that like have the most extreme April Fool's Day jokes.
Well, the one thing that stands out to me about the inn that she's creating is that she says that she wants to create this inn where people know what they're coming for. So when they know what they're coming for as a whodunit, it definitely takes a lot of the surprise element out of it.
But she's got to, like, really, like, you know... But granted, you're going to have people like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen.
Sure,
so you can have, like, you know, those touristy dipshits, and you can have, like, a ooga booga booga, like, oh, you know, it's scary, you know.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, and it's like sort of the modern, or the our version now is the whodunit dinner party, right? So where you have someone acting it out, and they hand out parts, and then you play it. In this case, this is more of an extreme version of it. And this reminds me a little bit of a newer film that came out not too long ago called The House is October Built, where it's about people that are seeking extreme haunted houses. Mm-hmm. And so they keep going to these different haunted houses, and they find out that there's this one really extreme one that's going to test all of their wits and guile. Yeah. And so they try to find it, and they actually are like tricked into doing this whole haunted house, and it's actually a whole big trick that has been conspired against these people. But this reminds me a lot of, like, they got ideas from April Fool's Day, because in some ways that is what this is doing, is that it's a kind of an elaborate ruse that Muffy has cooked up, and she kind of gets everybody in on it after they have been in the house.
Get killed.
They technically die, and then they become part of the show and help out.
What's she doing when, like, these people think they're dead? Like, this 90-pound woman, she, like, fucking sneak up and chloroform, like, shh, hey, it's okay. It's all a joke.
Yeah.
It's all gag.
Yeah,
that's why I was saying, like, the one part when she's, like, running around the house, like, it's not Muffy, it's Buffy! He's like, and the one guy, Rob's, like, screaming like a girl, like, ah! She's gonna kill us! I love you! Ah! It's like, you're fucking 6'5", 2'4", just punch her in the fucking face and be done with it.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, like, you know.
I like that. I like that they're so caught up in the fear that they're...
No, I know, but it's just like, even still, like, that's like, come on. She's 90 pounds. Yeah, I know she's got a knife, but you could literally just put your hand on her head.
Yeah.
And she's going to be trying to stab you, and just going to like, you can't do anything. Not only that, too, like, oh, I was in the, you know, I'm the guy that was in the water buck, and I got crushed into the post by the ferry, and my face started bleeding. And they're like, it was all makeup, and where the, what water, resistant prosthetic did he have to go underwater, and then, like, oh, let me flap it on my face, and then, you know, and then fucking dive into the one boat to go back to shore, because that was great when he jumped into the boat, like, after, because he, like, dive bombed into it, like, he heard a nice thud as he hits into it, and the constable's like, I'm going off, you know, to take him back.
So I find that the April Fool's part of this is probably the most fun aspect of it.
It is, but it's also, like, it's so ridiculous. Again,
it is, yeah, sure, it is definitely so ridiculous, especially in some of those scenes where you're supposed to believe, like, someone was hanging, and yet they actually were not hanging, but it was just, like, a trick that the person fell for. Sort of hard to believe, because what we see is basically what they're seeing, and it doesn't seem like a trick. So it's interesting to think about the logistics behind how they would have pulled off.
Or the guy that's, like, in the well, when they go down in the well, like, there's dead body. Were they just sitting down there, like, motionless until they fucking their breath until they fucking decide to, like, you know, like, okay, come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to really
suspend your disbelief. No, you're right.
Suspend your disbelief a little bit here and watch it. But I will say that once we got to the ending, and I did see this coming, that it was all going to be sort of a trick that Muffy was playing.
A ruse. I'm surprised I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't really catch that?
No, and I'm usually, and I hate to brag, as I've said it before, but I'm usually pretty good at guessing twists. Yeah, I didn't see it. I thought, like, there'd be, like, some kind of, like, joke, but I didn't see it be like, it's Clue! But a year before.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know that I saw all of it coming, that it was going to be a full prank, but I thought there would be some parts of it that were a prank.
Because there's so much, like, again, the whole thing is based off of, like, hi, April Fools. But there's only like a couple of jokes on the boat, and then at the dinner scene, and that's it.
And actually, the rest of the film is only one day is April Fool's Day, and then the rest of it is like the 2nd, and then I think it even goes into April 3rd. So it's not April Fool's Day anymore.
See, they're trying too damn hard.
That's right.
Why would you have By the way, how fucking corny too when they're doing the whole at the dining room scene a toast to friends made in college. Because it'll last forever. They'll just all sit here and...
It's cute. It's cute.
That's the other thing, too. They're all, apparently friends with Muffy, but they don't, know each other for the most part.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
the whole reason they're all gathered together is pretty tenuous. Because it's well, we're all friends with Muffy. And it's if you're all friends with Muffy, how have some of you never even come across
Yeah, and Nan's is particularly strange because it seems like they cut out a little bit. I mean, we know that Nan got a gag that had a baby crying, and so she brings it up with Muffy because apparently she had, either an abortion or something to that effect.
But stuff that goes nowhere too, where they put I was just clipping some out a car accident. And it's so everyone's been in a car accident, and it's that shit goes nowhere. You think they'd be see, that's that's a missed opportunity to go. I know you did last summer out,
right? Yeah,
where that's where I thought it was going. Where Muffy knows,
or House on Haunted Hill style.
Yeah, like dark secrets about this, and then then she's at the end, some of this shit creeped you guys out because it might have accidentally hit a little too close to home. That was unintentional. Yeah, I'm sorry.
That is a really weird element to it that I don't really...
Goes nowhere. Yeah, so it's
I feel like there was an idea there that wasn't really...
fleshed out, and they're just kind of just...
Yeah, that one, that does stand out to me because all of those elements really went nowhere once they were kind of brought open. And even it's sort of just waved away at the end of the film by Muffy. Yeah, and it's I don't know. I don't love that part of it. The other part that I am sort of I don't really maybe I just didn't recognize her, but at the end of the film when Muffy has her own April Fool's prank, who is that woman? Did you recognize her?
I think it's supposed to be Nan.
Is it supposed to be Nan? I couldn't really tell because
the lesbian lovers.
Yeah, but I couldn't really tell because of her hair pulled back,
like she's like she's part of the Eurythmics,
Yeah, she kind of it was almost like they were trying to make her look romantic because of the hair pulled back and she's doing something different with
which
her hair.
I love that too. She's slits her throat and it's and it's she's it's hey, oxygen's coming.
Yeah, look
from your mouth.
Look, it's not really a knife. You're not really bleeding.
You didn't get your throat slit because you're not going. You're going.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think that those are fun moments that you don't really get in a slasher film that often.
You know what? I think this film is just a giant Krampus. But an April Fool's, and the April Fool's god is a Jack in the Box that winks at you.
True.
You're all instead of being trapped into snow globes, they're just trapped in a bunch of jacks.
They're fools that are trapped in a Jack in the Box. I don't know. I appreciate the change up though that this slasher film has no one die. Literally, no one dies, and everybody's living happily ever after. They're having a giant party. Everybody gets their own goddamn champagne bottle. Yeah, I know.
Oh, didn't you love that? Just to know, you're in fucking fancy New England town when the water's not working. She's I won't drink that water because it might be poisoned. And it's Perrier.
It's Perrier.
And I was so that's who buys it. Because every time I see it at the store, I'm like, who buys giant bottles of Perrier sparkling water for $5?
They do.
Fucking rich New Englanders.
New Englanders do, yeah.
With their carriages and not carts. And other things they say that are stupid.
Yeah.
Cat.
What else you got? What else you want to talk about here? I know you had said that the music sort of feels like
Oh my god, it's like a fucking terrible, super Famicom, like Japanese horror game, like playing like Clockwork or something, like you know the
8-bit sort of sound.
No, not 8-bit. It's more like it is kind of. I mean, I know it's before the Super Nintendo, but it's kind of like a Super Nintendo. I think it's Clockwork, the one that stars the. I think it's called Clockwork, the one that
the guy with the giant blade.
Yeah,
yeah,
with the scissors and the character, and the character is supposed to be based off the girl from Phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's what the soundtrack reminded me.
Right,
like,
yeah, like the
Yeah,
it is. It's sort of like Carnival-esque at times because the whole film is set up by Muffy having been sort of terrorized in her own
childhood
by a Jack-in-the-Box, which is sort of, I guess, scary, and it sets off in motion, like, I don't know what we're supposed to really make of that. Are we supposed to make, like, she's sort of...
That's where that whole, like, intro, like, made me think of, like, that's where I got, like, the Murder, She Wrote. It's, like, it's in New England.
Yeah.
It's got this TV movie-esque, like...
Yeah.
Just expecting an old lady, like, oh, who died in town this day? Like,
I think, like, the carnival element is supposed to be, like, her...
Nightmare fuel?
Yeah, her nightmare that it continues to bother her, so she's sort of, like, trying to enact it on other people.
But it's very tender, because, again, that's only in the intro.
Yeah.
And then at the end.
Yeah, it's a very...
So it's like...
Yeah, the plot's a little bit disconnected with those things.
And the same thing, too, when it's like, so you don't have a sister named Buffy. No, his that Skip over there. Oh, God, you know.
Yeah,
I was just...
Yeah,
it's like, where the hell there's nothing, you know, like, except, like, oh, he's the cousin that he was invited just because he's the cousin, but... You know, other than that, he would have been invited. It's like, who just invites a random cousin?
Yeah.
You know, like, when you have your family get together, it's like, oh, by the way, remember that one cousin that no one talks to? Invite him to the Christmas party this year.
Yeah, some of those things are really disconnected. Like, some of it seems like they were trying so hard for the red herring that they incorporated things that really don't make sense.
See, that's the one thing I did get, though. You knew it was going to be Muffy.
Oh, yeah.
So the entire, like, you know, the whole red herring of Buck, the ferryman getting crushed, and, you know, you knew that was going to be red herring. So you knew it was going to be Muffy the entire way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's where it's like, at the end, though, it's like, I didn't know it was going to be a ruse.
Mm-hmm. Everything was going to be.
This elaborate ruse. But at the same time, there was, like, nothing really there to kind of...
It is interesting, too, that you don't really have a protagonist, that you're not really rooting for anyone in particular. There's so many characters that you
And all the girls do seem like whores, so there is no, virgin. Even,
Kit.
Yeah, even Kit, she's like, you know...
Yeah, they try to copulate multiple times.
So, I mean, there's no virginal, like... heroine of the day.
Yeah, it sort of gets rid of that element of a slasher film as well. It's interesting. I don't know.
I think it could have been more kind of explored just if they invested some depth into their characters. They're not all of them, but like they're all stereotypes and archetypes, which is fine because that's what this genre is totally based off of. But if you're going to try to do the whole subversion... You gotta add depth in some places to make, you know, what you're doing kind of makes sense.
I would have liked to have seen the film have less characters in it. There's just too many, you know, because when you're talking about a slasher film, you got like 4 to 5 people. This film has like
12.
8 to 9. Yeah, and sometimes, depending if like you count the ferryman who shows up here and there and the constable. There's quite a few characters in this film.
It made me think of like Legend of the Galactic Hero. I was like, oh, there's 60 main characters.
Yeah.
I remember. Like,
yeah, there's just so many characters to work through. You only have an 89-minute film to get through them. You don't have a chance to even meet many of these characters.
They're all similar because they're all just blonde, blue-haired, Zeke High, New England yuppies.
Yeah. Other than that, that's all I got for April Fool's Day.
That's all I got. You know, I think we got more out of that than... Probably should have.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Yeah. So you ready to give it a rating?
Let's do it.
All right. On a scale
of 10.
I gotta think now.
I got one, but stereotypical. And I don't want to go with the stereotypical route.
What do you got?
I got Jack in the Box.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because I've never been to a restaurant before.
Let's see. I've never been to the restaurant either, actually.
I think there's one in Albany.
Is there? Yeah.
I'm thinking of Jumpin' Jacks. Or at least maybe it was there. I don't know. We're getting off track.
Oh, out of 10, I'll call them reams of condoms, because that does crop up in this
He
film.
had like a fucking
I don't even know if they make them now.
Like bandolier of
I don't know if they make
dick
them
rubbers.
I don't know if they make that many anymore.
Well, you're the one that has 100. Like
it's like a fucking magic trick card. Where they.
Why would you put it in your mouth like that, like a bandolier? I mean, I know they're wrapped, but still, like, would you, like, would that be a great thought? Like, if you're like, oh, hold on, let
me bite into one,
bite into your bandolier of, dick rubbers.
Yeah. So, out of 10 reams of condoms, what would you give April Fool's Day?
I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm actually kind of surprised this isn't a more popular film and well known, because I do think the fact that it subverts your expectations kind of makes it very much ahead of its time in the kind of parody genre. It's almost meta.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite, but it's almost. And again, this is a year or two before Clue. I can't remember if Clue came out in 87 or 88. It's one of the two. Though your cast of characters is bland, boring, and pedantic as all hell, they aren't offensive enough to make you upset, but they are offensive enough to make you want them to be seen killed. I do like the idea. It went further with the April Fool's idea than I thought it would go, and got more mileage out of it than I thought they would, because I didn't think that'd be tied to the... I mean, I did think it'd be tied to the ending, but not in the elaborate way that it was. Mm-hmm. The kills, though very bland, pedantic, and have nothing to them at all, I think the overall idea of the film, its shortness, its contrite, makes it an enjoyable enough of a slasher film to watch, to give you something new and different from what was going on at the time period. Like I said, I think the fact that it is ahead of its time in what it's doing idea-wise makes it worth the watch. And I think it, again, if you're somebody who likes very meta slasher films, like I do, being someone who's a big fan of like New Nightmare and the Scream films and such, you'll probably get a lot of mileage out of this, even though you can tell the ideas that they have here are very early in its infancy of what would later come.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would say probably a 7 out of 10 for April Fool's Day. I've seen some really bad 80s slashers. I've seen some great 80s slashers. And April Fool's Day is probably on the higher end of those, mostly because of its gimmick. It really has a gimmick going for it throughout the entire time. And I would say that this one at least really subverts my expectations in that I don't know of many other slasher films that do end up with everybody just being fine and nothing,
and laughing.
Nothing happened to them, and they have a dance party in the end.
Which, by the way, who gets drunk off bottles of champagne?
I don't know. Rich people do, I guess.
It's not a drink that I would think to sit there and just,
I agree. Yeah, it's
slug
dry champagne.
Slug away and be like, all right, I'm good.
Apparently they do though. I would say that I originally thought when watching the film, I was like, wow, this is like super generic. None of these kills are really amounting to anything, and I think that might be a bit of a problem as you watch through the film, and some people might even be really turned off by that dynamic. But once you get to the end of the film, I think it works as a twist that you really... I mean, I saw it coming to a certain extent, but I don't know that you see it to the full extent of how it's going to play out in the film. So definitely some things that seem generic, but then resonate as you get to the end of the film. I think everybody does an okay job. There's not really a standout character or actor here, and that's because most of them are really not designed to be standout characters. And overall, it's just a fairly enjoyable and very quick, well-paced film to watch. I didn't think that there was any really dull or slow moments in this movie.
There are some slow.
Yeah.
When they're kind of just fucking bumbling around.
Oh, that's true though. Some of the ferry scenes are a little slow.
On the ferry and in the actual mansion itself. We're playing grab ass.
True.
As they're playing soccer, it's just a giant game of grab ass to play in the back.
Unfortunately, too, there's those elements that really don't come to fruition. All of the pranks that are played on people that seem to resonate more in their life. That seem like they were kind of cut out of the script, perhaps. Those are flaws, but you know what? At the end of the day, April Fool's Day is sort of a very unique slasher film from the 80s, and I appreciate it, and I am surprised that it doesn't have more appreciation.
That's what we should have rated it out of. 10 Charles Bronson action
figures. Oh yeah, there is one of those in here too. Yeah, the Barbie doll that looks just like Charles Bronson.
One of the Ken dolls looks like fucking Bronson coming off of Death Wish 4.
Yep.
It's great.
You want one of those?
I do.
Try to see if you can find it on eBay.
Go on
the official April Fool's Day prop.
If it doesn't say Bronson, he was the influence of this, I don't want it because
that's right.
He looks just like Bronson.
Look just like Bronson. I know.
God, it's been 3 years since we've done Death Wish.
It's been a while. Yeah. All right, so one thing I do want to point out is that we did get a shout out on Twitter and on their podcast from Capes on the Couch podcast. And one thing that they mentioned is that they would love to hear an episode on Jack Frost by us.
Which Jack Frost?
Jack Frost, the horror film. Oh, you want to do the Michael Keaton one.
No, that's the one I was talking about.
You want to do the Michael Keaton one.
That's a horror film.
Oh, well, it's about
a Bruce Springsteen wannabe dies in a car crash and comes back
to haunt his son. Yes. Yeah, that's the other horror movie. But the one that they want us to do is the one with Shannon Elizabeth.
Is her boobies in it?
Yes, they are.
Oh, goody!
Yes, her boobies are in it. Which is, it's actually a perfect film for us to cover on that podcast. It's a really terrible movie. It's really not very good. But it is fun to watch in some respects. I do have it. It was released on Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome, and I do have it on Blu-ray.
I mean, how can it not be a 10 out of 10 film if Shannon Elizabeth's got her top off?
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'll just let you... Well, you'll just wait and see why it's not a 10 out of a 10 film.
Listen, I'll watch American Pie to this day.
It's a little bit different than that. But
and American Pie is
it
also
does,
a great
film,
so.
I don't know if you've ever seen any of those 90s films that were made by Trauma, but it's like one of those. It's yeah.
Is that the lowest division of Miramax?
Oh, yeah.
Or Dimension?
No, but you'll see. Well, I just said I tweeted back and I said, you know what? That's a perfect film for us to cover. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll definitely do Jack Frost at some point.
Well, we got 3 films possibly. I'll give you the option for our next one. Because the next superhero one coming out, I mean, we can go see it, but I'd probably be fine skipping it, or we can do 2 films. So we can go back to doing a weekly.
Yeah, you want to do both Shazam and Pet Sematary.
I do want to see Pet Sematary.
So...
And I would think they're both topical.
Should we do a Twitter poll and see which one we should do? Because I really don't have a preference. I do want to see both.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So because
that's
more
also
the completionist in me for Shazam.
No. That's what I'm saying. We could do back to back.
Yeah, I'm just wondering which one we should do first, and which one more people would be interested in. So I guess I think
the problem is going to be is I don't think Pet Sematary is going to be shown around here.
You don't think so?
It's not done by a big studio.
We'll have to make I don't know. Yeah, we can't make that call yet. I don't know.
Because if you're new to the podcast, we live in buttfuck nowhere.
Yeah.
And we have to drive 45 minutes out to Albany, New York to
Pet Sematary is out next week?
They're both out on the same day, April 5th, I believe.
April 5th. So we are not going to be back for a new episode next week. It'll be the week after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'd be due for 2, like I'm saying. So.
Right, yeah. So you'd
we'd have to do 3. It might be 3 episodes in a row, or maybe 2 break and then Infinity War.
That's true. I don't know. I guess what I'll do is maybe I'll pop it out for
because Shazam will be here in our in our buttfuck podunk town
for sure.
Because they've had posters up for it for like a year now, it seems.
So what I'll do is I'll put out
but Pet Sematary, we might have to, like I said, because I don't think a big studio is doing it.
Yeah.
And with our one lone ranger of a fucking cinema now, we might have to drive an hour, which I'm totally fine with, to go see it. And I think that would be also because you know what? With the recent trend of remakes, god damn it, I think Pet Sematary is going to be another good one.
Yeah. Well, I'll put out a Twitter and Facebook poll and just see what people think. Which one we could do both of them. We'll just see which one they want us to do first, and we'll go from there.
And we'll hang out the contingency to people that if Pet Sematary does win, it might not happen because it might not be around.
Right?
Here.
Yeah, and we might. Yeah, so it might have to be Shazam, but I'll put a poll out just to see. Not sure which one to do. I forgot that they're both coming out on the same day, so.
I I don't feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, really, Warner Brothers? 2.5 weeks before Endgame. Do you not want to make money?
That's true, yeah. And then I forgot, too, that Us is out, too.
We didn't do it, though. I mean,
You mean Get Out.
Yeah. I'm mixing up my films.
Yeah, but,
I do want to see Us.
I do, as well.
I still need to see Get Out. But I do like Jordan Peele a lot.
Yep. So, I mean, we do also need to do Us, but that might be for another time. We might not get to it at this point, but we'll get to it when it comes out.
It's good.
I've heard it's pretty good, too.
I still gotta see It Follows as well.
Yeah.
I know it's not the same, but I did want to see that when that came out, and I just never got around to it.
I didn't love it.
I know you didn't.
I didn't love
it. It looked like it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to see what you think.
Well, you know what? And The Conjuring 10 comes out, and
yeah. The rest of the Conjuring universe.
All right, when you go see the Conjuring films, are you just yelling at the screen at Vera Farmiga to show us her boobs?
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I don't think, what's her name, though? The Warren there, whatever her first name is. I want to say Elizabeth. It's not correct. But,
Pocahontas.
Yeah, that's right. But the Warren woman, I don't think that's what she normally would do in everyday life. So they're not mimicking that.
Oh, why not?
Yeah. All right. So
kind of makes me want to watch Bates Motel over again.
There you go. Next week, either Shazam or Pet Sematary, or not next week. I'm sorry.
Next episode in 2 weeks.
Next episode in 2 weeks. Either Pet Sematary or Shazam. We haven't really decided yet, and it's going to depend on
Pet Sematary's
if
available.
Pet Sematary's in theaters. But I'll put up a Twitter poll, so vote on that. Just tell us what you want us to do first, because we will do both of them, but it's just which one are we going to get to first. Thanks for listening. We're on podcasts, apps anywhere, so you can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere else that you can think of, we're on it. Leave us a nice review and subscribe to us on there. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. And we have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. Write to us, let us know what you want to see us cover. Like I said, we definitely are going to keep in mind Jack Frost for a future episode when we can get to it.
Man, it would have been great if we got the post like a week ago when
right. Then we could have
with the spring thaw.
Yeah, we could have worked it right in there. So, but other than that, thank you for listening. We will be back in 2 weeks, and we're gonna have a very
special
episodes. Could be 2, maybe 3 in a row. Who knows? So, it'll be a lot of fun.
Enjoy opening day of baseball tomorrow, people.
Enjoy opening day. Enjoy March Madness. I'm still doing very well. Thank you, 95th percentile.
Which fucking by the way, which fucking sucks, because like for the past 5 years, I've beaten you.
Well,
in our brackets, and this year
I just put it together real fast. Randomly.
Well, so did I. You know what I did? Pick against the ACC.
Yeah.
So, like, Maryland picked against Syracuse, got lucky when I picked well, no, that's the Louisville game.
Yeah.
I did pick Minnesota over Louisville. Like, just went like, oh, these, bam, bam, bam. And I picked Tom Izzo and MSU to win the title.
Yep.
Because Michigan State's always in the Final Four and always somehow, does well. Big Tom Izzo fan, so.
Yeah, so enjoy opening day of baseball. Enjoy March Madness, and we hope to see you back for our episode in 2 weeks.
Take care.